White has a secret weapon against the Alekhine Defense, and today, you're about to learn it. We're diving into the most devastating chess traps that turn Black's aggressive setup into total collapse. Whether you're a rising chess student or a battle-hardened tactician, these traps will give you instant dominance right out of the opening. Let's uncover the tricks, the traps, and the checkmates hiding in the shadows of the Alekhine Defense. Trap 1. Imagine this. Black tries to challenge you with the Alekhine Defense, but instead of defending, you go for the kill. You begin with the classic pawn to e4. Black responds, throwing out their knight early to f6, the signature move of the Alekhine. But you push boldly. Pawn to e5, chasing the knight. Black retreats to d5. You calmly develop with knight to f3. Black plays pawn to d6, trying to break the center. Now comes the setup. You bring out the bishop to c4, eyeing dangerous diagonals. Black falls for it, moving the knight to b6, attacking your bishop. But you strike. Bishop takes the pawn near Black's king and forces the king to recapture. The trap is in motion. Your knight jumps to g5. Check! The king is forced back to g8. Now your queen steps into f3, setting up a deadly idea. Black tries to guard with queen to e8, but you ignore it, pushing pawn to e6, a silent threat. In desperation, Black plays pawn to h6. But it's already too late. Your queen leaps to f7. Check again. Black is forced to trade queens. And now, the final blow. Pawn takes on f7, and it's checkmate. Delivered not by a major piece, but a humble pawn. Brilliant, brutal, beautiful. Trap 2. Black plays the Alekhine Defense, expecting a slow positional battle. But you've got other plans. You start with pawn to e4. Black answers with the usual knight to f6. You quietly develop with knight to c3. Black strikes the center with pawn to d5. You capture in the center. Black recaptures with the knight. Then your bishop comes out to c4, targeting weak points near the king. Black develops their own bishop, hoping to trade. But you're not interested. You play queen to f3, already eyeing f7. Black defends with pawn to c6. You continue developing, knight to e2. Black plays pawn to g6, aiming to fianchetto. Now comes the surprise. Your knight jumps to d4, bringing pressure. Black captures, and you respond with knight to e6, attacking the queen. Black panics and captures your knight with a pawn. But now, you strike with the queen, taking on c3 and opening deadly lines. Black tries to hold on with rook to g8, but it's too late. You play bishop to e6, and the entire position collapses. Black is totally busted. Trap 3. Our next trap is a magnificent tactic that delivers checkmate in just 9 moves. You begin with pawn to e4. Black responds with knight to f6. You push pawn to e5, forcing the knight back to d5. Then you grab more space, pawn to d4. Black brings in the other knight to c6. You develop with knight to f3. Now Black gets aggressive, playing pawn to f6 to challenge your center. You strike, pawn takes the f6 pawn. Black recaptures with the g-pawn, opening lines near their king. Now you tighten the screws, pawn to c4 chasing the knight. It runs to b6. You push again, pawn to d5. The knight jumps to e5, trying to hold. But here comes the knockout. You take the knight. Black recaptures and opens the floodgates. Now your queen slides to h5. Checkmate. No mercy, no escape. Trap 4. This trap starts quietly, but hits Black with a sharp surprise they'll never forget. You begin with pawn to e4. Black replies with knight to f6, the classic Alekhine. You play knight to c3. Black pushes pawn to d5. You immediately challenge with pawn to e5. Black retreats to d7, already on the back foot. Then comes the surprise. You push again, pawn to e6. Black captures, but their position is cracking. You strike the center with pawn to d4. Black plays pawn to c5, trying to break through. Now you develop knight to f3. Black brings out knight to c6. You capture in the center. Pawn to d takes c5. Black recaptures with the knight, but their pieces are off balance. You apply pressure, bishop to b5, pinning the knight. And now, the move that seals it. queen to d4. You're suddenly threatening the knight, the rook in the corner, and key dark squares. Black is paralyzed. Trap 5. In the Alekhine Defense, Black tries to pull you into deep waters, but instead, you set the trap. You begin with pawn to e4. Black replies with knight to f6. You develop knight to c3. Black plays pawn to d6, looking solid. Now you strike bishop to c4, targeting f7. Then Black gets greedy. They capture your pawn with the knight. Time to punish that. You sacrifice the bishop. Bishop takes the pawn near the king. The king is forced to recapture. Now your knight jumps in, knight to e4, hammering the center. Black tries to block with pawn to e5, but your queen joins the battle, queen to f3, giving check. The king slides to g8. Now comes the silent killer, knight to g5. It's not check, but it's deadly. Black panics and captures your knight with their queen. That's when you drop the hammer. Queen to d5, check. Black blocks with the bishop, but you calmly capture it, and it's checkmate. One greedy move, and your opponent's king is left exposed and helpless. Trap 6. This next trap is a mind-blowing tactic straight from the Alekhine Defense. You start with pawn to e4. Black replies with knight to f6. You push pawn to e5. The knight runs to d5. You chase again, pawn to c4. The knight slides to b6, so you keep going, pawn to c5. The knight retreats to d5. Knight to c3. Black captures your knight. But this is all part of the plan. You recapture with the pawn, opening the center. Black plays pawn to d6. You calmly develop your bishop to g5, pinning the knight. Black pushes pawn to e5, trying to break free. Now you strike. Queen to b3, pressuring key points. Black brings the knight to c6. You place your rook in the center, rook to d1. Black tries bishop to d7. You calmly bring your bishop to c4. Black plays queen to c8, missing the threat. You capture. Bishop takes the pawn near the king. The king is forced to d8. Now Black's entire position is falling apart. This is how you punish passive play, with active pieces, sharp pawns, and perfect timing. Finally, let's set a stunning trap that ends the game in just a few moves. You begin with pawn to e4. Black replies with knight to f6. You play knight to c3. Black strikes the center. Pawn to d5. You capture in the center. Black recaptures with the knight. Now you bring your bishop to c4, eyeing dangerous diagonals. Black retreats the knight to b6. You reposition, bishop to b3. Black plays knight to c6. You develop with knight to f3. Then Black makes a mistake, bishop to g4, pinning your knight. Now the trap begins. You strike, bishop takes on f7 with check. Black avoids instant disaster by moving the king to d7. If they had captured, they'd walk straight into a classic mate. You calmly bring your queen to e2, increasing pressure. Black plays pawn to e6. Now comes the quiet killer. Pawn to h3, asking the bishop a question. Black captures your knight. And now queen to e6, checkmate! That's how you punish the Alekhine Defense, with clean development, fearless sacrifices, and sharp calculation. If these traps blew your mind, hit that like button and subscribe for more killer chess strategies and opening tricks every week. Got a favorite trap or line you use in the Alekhine? Drop it in the comments. Let's grow stronger together. Want to support the channel even more? Become a channel member to unlock exclusive perks and behind-the-scenes content. And if you found real value today, consider sending a super thanks. It really helps me bring you even more amazing chess content. Stay sharp, play boldly, and remember, the best attack often starts with the smartest trap. See you in the next checkmate.